Okay, in today's lesson we are going to look at exam standard questions for National 5 Maths and finding the discriminant when we have got no calculator. So this will be for your paper 1. Okay, we had this in the part 1 lesson as well, this information here. This is your quadratic formula when you're being asked to work out the roots, what they actually are. But when we are just wanting to find out what the nature of the roots are, we just use that bit there, the b squared minus 4ac. So remember that that's your discriminant. Remember that it is when you're looking for the nature of the roots. You don't get given that formula, but of course it is the bit under the square root there. So you can use your formula sheet to go find your discriminant. So let's make sure we know what phrases to use. If we get an answer for b squared minus 4ac and it comes out more than 0, we need to use the phrase real and distinct roots. Remember, that meant that for each graph it crossed over the x-axis twice, but use this phrase, real and distinct. Okay, next one. We have got b squared minus 4ac is equal to 0. Remember, that meant your graph came down, it touched the x-axis in just one place. For the second graph here, it came up and it touched it in just one place. But the phrase to use is real and equal roots. Please don't try and cut that phrase down, because it's a nice easy thing to remember, but if you try and chop it down, you'll just lose your mark for that bit. Okay, you cannot beat the SQA, they're very strict about these things. Next one, b squared minus 4ac is less than 0. If you get a negative number, we say we've got no real roots. And remember, that was because the graph came down and up without touching the x-axis, or for this one here, it came up and down without touching your x-axis. Okay, so here's 4 questions here. Can you try those, please? Pause the video. I'll go over all the answers to these at the end of the video. So pause the video. Okay, here's the third one that I would like you to try. So again, pause the video. And that's the last one for today, that one actually. So we'll be checking our answers next. Oops. Okay, so for the first question I had to do, they're being quite nice here because they're saying to you, use the discriminant. I don't always say that in exam questions, so that was a nice year. Okay, so I've started off the process here. I've got my A is 1, my B is minus 3, and my C is 7 from the equation that was given there. I've started to substitute it in, so I'm thinking about my BODMAS again, about working on my index first, remembering that minus times minus makes positive and 3 times 3 makes 9. So you see I've replaced my minus 3 squared with 9 there now. Again, following on with BODMAS, the next thing that I need to address is the multiplies there. So 4 times 1 times 7, 28 for that one. 9 take away 28, not sure about that, so I'll do it round the other way. That gives an answer of 19, so if I turn it back round the way they want, it gives an answer of minus 19. Careful, we're not finished this yet. I still need to determine the nature of the roots. b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, hence there are no real roots. Okay, second question here, it doesn't tell you to use the discriminant. We just have the phrase determine the nature of the roots. And from that phrase, you need to know that you need to write down your discriminant and start to work that out. Okay, so I've started writing down my discriminant there, substituted in my numbers. According to BODMAS, I must do that 4 squared first. Next part with BODMAS is the multiply comes before take away. That comes out as 40. It's round the wrong way again, isn't it? I'd rather it was 40 take away 16. 30, 24. So turn it back round the other way and it makes minus 24 there. I'm not finished. I've still got to determine the nature of the roots. And there's my wee standard sentence there. So b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, hence there are no real roots. Okay, on to number 3. Again, it doesn't tell you to use the discriminant. The question starts with find the nature, or determine the nature actually. So what I'm going to do just now is I'm going to start off by writing down my b squared minus 4ac again. So I've substituted my numbers in. 5 squared, 4 times 7 times minus 1. So according to BODMAS, I must work out my square number part first. So that's my square number worked out. Then according to BODMAS, I have to do the multiplying bit next. 4 times 7 is 28, and then times it by minus 1 makes minus 28. Okay, so I got my 25 take away, and we said that we got minus 28 for the multiply there. So all we need to do now, minus minus makes plus, so add them together to get 53. I'm just going to finish it off with my standard sentence there. So to finish it off there, b squared minus 4ac is bigger than 0 this time, hence there are real and distinct roots. Again, remember, please don't try and cut down on the working out, don't cut down on the sentence rather. Okay, if you need to, click pause because I'm going to tidy up the screen so I can do the last question. Okay, so this last question is a little bit different because this time we're missing a number here. Okay, and it's saying determine the values that k could have. Now, the hint here is that there are real and equal roots. Now, we sometimes use that phrase. If something has got real and equal roots, that tells us that b squared minus 4ac equal roots means it's equal to 0. Okay. So you'll see over in my equation there, that equation is equal to 0, which is quite an important thing to notice there. So I've got a is 8, b is k squared minus 4 times a is 8 and c is 2. And this time it's equal to 0. Now you need to keep writing that equals 0 down there for the moment, okay? Now normally at this point we would be thinking about BODMAS and we would think about doing the squaring part there. There's nothing you can do with that squaring part, it's already as simplified as it can be. So we need to move on to the multiplying bit next. 4 times 8 is 32, times it by 264. Okay. K squared take away 64. If I want to get k squared on its own, the opposite of take away 64 is to add 64. 0 add 64. Opposite of squaring is to take the square root. Now, I'm just looking back at the question, the value or values of k. If you square root something, there's 2 answers for that. So k is equal to 8. But the other thing to remember is that it's minus 8 as well. Okay. 8 squared makes 64, but minus 8 makes 64 as well. So you end up with 2 answers for that one, so just watch out, okay? Pause if you need to. Now this one is the official mark scheme for the question 3 that we looked at on the last slide. So it's a 2-mark question. You have to find the discriminant, so you need to have a wee bit of working out and write your answer 53. And also you need to state the nature of your roots, so you have to have your phrase in real and distinct roots. Okay, now like I've shown you before, look at note number 1. Oh, doesn't matter how many times we warn you. Right, correct answer without working out, award no marks. Okay, so be careful. That's all I want to look at on that one. Okay, this question was quite nice because it tells us to work out b squared minus 4ac. Maria has been asked to find the roots. She decides to use a quadratic formula, calculate b squared minus 4ac. Okay, so hopefully your calculation looked something like this. 3 squared take away 4 times 1 times 5. So 3 squared is 9. The answer to the multiply is 20. 9 take away 20. Again, if that hurts your brain, turn it around the other way. 20 take away 9 makes 11, meaning that when you swap it back around again, you'll get minus 11 for that one. So that's part A. Part B, explain why Maria cannot find the roots. There are a couple of ways you can answer this one. I started answering it by saying that b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, hence there are no real roots. I'm going to go a little bit further for this one just to show my understanding. When that bit there is a negative number, the problem with it is that we cannot find the square root of a negative number. Okay, so I've just popped a little bit extra onto that one. b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, hence there are no real roots. That's why she can't find any, because there aren't any. And this is because we cannot calculate the square root of a negative number. Okay, and this is the official mark scheme. There were not many marks for this one. So finding your minus 11 gave you 1 mark, and stating a valid reason. Okay, their answer, the square root of a negative number does not exist. And that's ended today's lesson. Well done.